There is a bench outside the side entrance of the Crestwood Senior Activity Center that has held the weight of many mornings. It sits under a narrow overhang protected from the rain by about 3 feet of concrete roof facing east, so that in the early hours the light falls across it in long, warm bars. The bench is painted green, though the paint has thinned over the years to something closer to the color of old sage, and one of the slats near the right armrest is slightly higher than the others because a bolt was replaced once and whoever replaced it did not quite get it level. Hattie Mae Jefferson knows this bench the way she knows her own kitchen table. She knows which angle to sit at so the uneven slat does not catch her hip. She knows that the third slat from the left holds a small groove where her canvas bag fits without sliding. She knows that on cold mornings the metal armrest nearest the wall stays a few degrees warmer than the one on the open side because the wall radiates a little heat from the furnace inside. She has been sitting on this bench on Tuesday mornings and Thursday mornings for 14 years. It is 6:47 in the morning on a Tuesday in March. The center does not open until 7:30. Hattie knows this. She has always known this. She arrives early because the number 83 bus, which is the only bus that stops within 4 blocks of this center, runs at 6:31, and then not again until 8:19. If she takes the 8:19, she misses setup. And Hattie Mae Jefferson does not miss setup. She has not missed setup in 11 years of calling bingo in that room, and she does not intend to begin missing it today. She sets her canvas bag on the bench beside her. It is a worn bag, the kind with flat handles and a wide body, once a pale khaki color, but now softened by years of handling into something warmer, closer to the color of raw linen. The zipper is red. Across the front, in careful, uneven letters, painted in 3 different colors of fabric paint the letters, read, "Lucky Hattie." A 9-year-old girl painted those letters one afternoon in Hattie's kitchen, her tongue pressed between her teeth in concentration, her small hand moving with great seriousness over the canvas. She used green for the L and the U yellow for the C and the K and the Y, and purple for Hattie because those were Hattie's favorite colors, and the girl had been paying attention. That girl's name was Destiny. She was Hattie's granddaughter. She died at 11 years old of leukemia in a hospital bed with a window that looked out over a parking garage. The last thing they did together. The day before she got too tired to do much of anything was watch a game show in that hospital room, and Hattie called out the answers before the contestants could, and Destiny laughed until she had to hold her side. Hattie has carried this bag to every Tuesday bingo session for 9 years. She brought it the first Tuesday after the funeral because she did not know what else to do with herself on a Tuesday, and she knew that Destiny would have told her to go. It is not a sentimental object she thinks about consciously every time she picks it up. It is simply part of going to bingo. It is simply part of Tuesdays. It is the bag. It is Destiny's letters. It is the way Hattie says good morning to a child who is not here anymore. Hattie is 79 years old. She worked for the United States Postal Service for 32 years. She sorted mail in a facility that processed 50,000 pieces a day. She drove routes in weather that would have kept a reasonable person at home. She trained 17 new carriers over the course of her career, and not a single one of them failed their probationary period because she did not train people to fail. She retired with a commendation letter in a frame that hangs in her hallway between a photograph of herself with the postmaster at her retirement party and a photograph of herself holding Destiny at about 4 years old. Destiny's face turned into the camera with an expression of pure satisfaction, like a person who has exactly what they need. Hattie is not a woman who moves slowly or thinks slowly or needs things explained twice. She is a woman who knows what she is doing and has known it for a long time. The morning air is cool and smells of damp concrete and something green from the hedges along the building's south wall that are just beginning to come back after the winter. The parking lot is empty except for a maintenance truck near the far end. The sparrows that live in the hedge are already moving around announcing the morning in the way sparrows do, with an energy that is disproportionate to their size. Hattie listens to them and watches the light spread over the lot and thinks about the supply list she keeps in the front pocket of the bag she needs to check whether they have enough daubers, because last week 3 people came without their own, and she had to use the spares. 4 other seniors arrive at the bench within the next few minutes. Clarence, who is 82 and walks with a cane since his knee surgery last spring, who has come to Tuesday bingo for 8 years because Hattie told him 8 years ago that it would improve his concentration and she would not take no for an answer. Vera and Rosemary sisters, who have come together every Tuesday for 6 years, who always sit at the third table from the front and always share a set of cards, and always argue gently about whether Rosemary marks too slowly. And Mr. Aldridge, who everyone calls Aldridge, because he once said he feels more comfortable with just the last name, and nobody questioned it, who came to the center 3 years ago after his wife died, and did not know a soul in the city, and still comes every Tuesday without fail. They settle in around the bench, standing or sitting, trading the small conversations of people who have been doing this routine long enough that the routine itself is a kind of comfort. Hattie thinks about the cards she needs to get out before the room fills. She thinks about whether she remembered to put the spare markers in the side pocket. She thinks about the fact that George has been coming in later the past few weeks since his back has been giving him trouble, and she will need to hold his usual spot for him until he arrives. She thinks about the fact that the last ball in the cage has a slight wobble from where the paint chipped off one side, which means it sometimes reads as a different number than it is if you are not looking carefully, and she has been compensating for this for 3 months without bothering anyone about it. She thinks about nothing alarming, nothing unusual. This is a Tuesday. This is what Tuesdays look like when everything is as it should be. The patrol car pulls into the parking lot at 7:03. She notices it the way you notice anything unexpected in a place you know well, not with alarm, but with a kind of mild attention, the way you would look twice at a strange car parked on your block. The car pulls into the lot slowly, no lights, and comes to a stop near the main entrance. The officer who gets out is younger than she expected. He has a wide face and very upright posture, the kind of posture that suggests someone who spent time being told how to stand. He looks at the building, then he looks at the bench, and then he walks toward the bench with the kind of deliberate stride that is meant to signal authority before anything has been said. Hattie watches him come. She thinks whatever this is, it will be over in a few minutes, and then we will set up bingo. She thinks this with the confidence of someone who has spent 32 years dealing with situations that looked difficult and were not, and some that looked fine and were not, and has learned to read the difference. She is not entirely certain watching Bloom cross the parking lot which kind this is. She will not be right about it being over in a few minutes. The officer reaches the bench. He looks at the group of them, 5 seniors, a Tuesday morning, a canvas bag with a red zipper, and he says in an even practiced tone that he received a call about an individual sitting outside the center before opening hours and whether any of them had current membership or were staff. Everyone looks at Hattie because Hattie is the one who has been here longest and is the one who is always most willing to answer a question with a direct answer. Hattie straightens slightly on the bench. She tells him that she as a member has been for 14 years and that she arrives early every Tuesday because of the bus schedule. She does not say this with attitude. She says it the way you tell someone the time flatly as information with no excess. The officer, whose name badge reads Bloom, nods in the way that is not actually agreement, but is a way of signaling that he has heard the words without accepting them. He tells her that the center coordinator has indicated that she may not be currently registered in the system. Hattie says the coordinator has been here 6 months. I have been here 14 years. Bloom does not respond to the logic of this. He says he will need to verify the information and asks if she can step aside while he does so. Clarence shifts his weight on his cane. He does not say anything yet. Vera and Rosemary exchange a look, the rapid kind that people exchange when they have been sisters long enough to hold entire conversations in a glance. Aldridge says nothing, but his jaw tightens in the particular way it does when something is wrong, and he has decided to wait before he says anything. Hattie thinks I have a card. I have had this card for 14 years. I can produce it right now and this will be done. She does not know yet that producing the card will not be done. This is how it begins. The morning does not look any different from the outside. The sun continues to do what it does. The parking lot remains ordinary. The sparrows continue in the hedge. But the morning has changed in the way that mornings change when something enters them that does not belong. And Hattie Mae Jefferson, who has spent 79 years learning the difference between a situation that will resolve itself and a situation that will require her to hold her ground, feels it settle into place around her like the particular weight of weather before a storm. She does not move. She does not argue. She picks up her bag and holds it in her lap, the red zipper turned toward her destiny's letters facing out, and she waits. Officer Curtis Bloom is 37 years old and has been with the department for 9 years. He is not a man who thinks of himself as a person who causes harm. He thinks of himself, if he thinks of himself at all during the working day, as a person who follows procedure and manages situations. He received the call from the center coordinator at approximately 6:58. The call was brief. The coordinator, a woman named Patricia Novak, who had been in the position for 6 months, told him that there was an individual who had arrived before opening and was sitting outside the side entrance, that the individual was not registered as a current member, and that she needed the situation handled before the center opened for the day. She used the phrase, "not in the system." She used the phrase, "I cannot verify her identity as a member." She used the phrase, "I need this resolved." Bloom arrived. He saw the bench. He saw Hattie. He made the calculation he always made, which was built out of what he had been told and what he could see in front of him. What he had been told was that someone was there who should not be. What he could see was a group of elderly black individuals sitting outside a building that was not yet open. He has not yet considered the possibility that the call he received was wrong, or that the person who made the call did not know what she did not know. He goes to the side entrance and knocks. A young staff member named Keisha, who manages the front desk and who arrived early because there was a supply delivery expected, opens the door with a look of mild surprise. Bloom explains the situation. Keisha says she will try to look up the name. She goes to the computer at the small front desk just inside the door. Bloom waits in the doorway. Outside, Hattie and the 4 others wait on the bench. Hattie can see Keisha through the glass panel beside the door. She watches the young woman type, watches her pause, watches her expression shift into something that is either recognition or cautious uncertainty. Keisha has worked the front desk for 2 years. She knows Hattie the way anyone knows someone they have seen every Tuesday and Thursday for 2 years. By the bag, by the voice, by the way she walks in and says, "Good morning" to everyone, including the person who mops the hall. Hattie knows Keisha's daughter's name is Amara, and that she started kindergarten last fall, and that she has a loose tooth that Keisha was hoping would come out before the school photos. She watches Keisha look up from the screen with an expression that is cautious and a little apologetic, and begin to say something to Bloom. Hattie cannot hear the words through the glass, but she can see the shape of the moment. Then Patricia Novak appears. Novak walks into the frame of the glass panel from the inner hallway. She is 44, with very short hair and a clipboard and a lanyard, and the particular energy of someone who has decided in advance how a situation is going to proceed. She leans over, looks at the screen, says something brief. Bloom listens. He nods in the same way he nodded at the bench, the receiving nod. The one that means he has accepted what he has been told as the framework for what comes next. He turns back to the door. He comes out and returns to the bench. He stands in front of Hattie and tells her that there is a record under her name, but that the record shows as deactivated in the current system. Hattie says that is not correct. Bloom says, "Ma'am, that is what the system shows." Hattie says the system is wrong. Bloom says, "I am not able to make that determination on my own." She thinks I have my card. I have paid my fee every year. I have never been told there is any question about my membership. She reaches into the front pocket of the bag and takes out her wallet and removes the membership card. It is a laminated rectangle with her name printed across the top and a barcode beneath it and a date of issue, and written in red ink in the hand of the previous director, the words "founding member." She holds it out to Bloom. Bloom takes it. He looks at the front. He turns it over and looks at the back. He turns it over again. He hands it back to her and says that he will need to verify the card with the coordinator because it predates the current registration system. Clarence says quietly, not to Bloom, but not exactly to himself either. 14 years. Bloom turns to look at Clarence. He says, "Sir, I was not speaking to you." Clarence says, "I know that. I was speaking to the air." Vera puts her hand briefly on Rosemary's arm. Rosemary covers it with her own. Aldridge has his hands in his coat pockets and is looking at the far end of the parking lot with the studied attention of someone who does not trust himself to look directly at what is happening in front of him, because he knows what he will feel if he does. Hattie thinks about her mail route. She drove that route for 11 years before she moved into training. She knew every house on it, every mailbox, every dog that would bark, and every dog that was all sound and no follow-through. Every person who always waited by the door, and every person who never came out at all. She knew her route because she had been on it long enough to know it, and because she paid attention. She knows her membership the same way. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes not from hard work, but from being required to prove something that was never in question, from being asked to account for your presence in a place that has been yours for longer than the person questioning you has been there. She has felt this exhaustion before. She recognizes it instantly without having to name it. She does not let it show on her face. She sits with her bag and she waits. She has been waiting in various ways her entire life. She waited at counters where other people were served first. She waited in rooms where her name was called last. She waited for promotions that went to people who had been there less time and done less work. She knew how to wait without making it small, without making it disappear into herself, without letting the act of waiting become a form of surrender. There is a way to wait that holds your ground and a way to wait that gives it up, and she has spent 79 years practicing the first kind. She looks at the bag in her lap. She traces the letters with her eyes. LUCKYHATTIE. She does not touch them. She does not need to. She can feel them from the inside. Bloom goes back to the door. He knocks again. This time Novak herself opens it, and they speak for approximately 2 minutes on the threshold. Hattie watches but cannot see Novak's face from the bench, only her shoulder and the edge of her clipboard and the posture of a person who is providing information with confidence. Bloom's face she can see. What she sees is a man who has been given a certainty that was not his own to begin with, and who is borrowing it, and who is now standing differently than he stood before the way people stand when they have been told they are right and they have chosen to believe it. He comes back. He moves to stand directly in front of the entrance door, not beside it, not at an angle from it. In front of it, with his back close to the glass, which means that anyone who wants to go through that door will need him to step aside first. He tells Hattie that the coordinator has confirmed the record shows deactivated status, and that without current verification, she is unable to enter the premises. He tells her that if she wishes to resolve the question of her membership, she can contact the center during regular business hours. Hattie says, "I've called nothing in 14 years because there has been nothing to call about." Bloom says, "Ma'am, I understand your frustration." Hattie says, "I'm not frustrated. I am correct." The silence that follows this is not an angry silence and not a defeated silence. It is the silence of something that has been stated plainly and left to stand on its own. There is a sound from inside the building, the sound of folding chairs being moved and arranged, a familiar rhythmic scraping that Hattie has heard at this hour every Tuesday for 11 years. Someone is setting up the bingo room. Someone is arranging the chairs at the tables where 63 people will be sitting in 45 minutes at tables where Hattie Mae Jefferson has called numbers in her carrying voice for 11 consecutive years, where she has learned the faces and the names and the preferences and the stories of everyone in the room. She thinks about destiny, a flash of memory. Not a long one, just the particular texture of a Sunday afternoon, the year before the diagnosis. The two of them at the kitchen table with the fabric paint and the bag spread open on a sheet of newspaper. Destiny asking which letter should be which color, with the gravity of a person making an important architectural decision. She had asked, should the H be green because Hattie starts with H and Hattie's favorite color is green, and Hattie had said that she should do it whatever way felt right to her. And Destiny had pressed her lips together and considered and then chosen purple for the whole name, which surprised Hattie and which she asked about. And Destiny said, "Purple is a queen color, and you are a queen." Hattie had said, "Child, where do you come up with these things?" And Destiny had gone back to painting. She is not going anywhere. Bloom is still standing in front of the door when he tells her a second time that she is going to need to leave the premises. This time he says it with the phrasing of someone issuing a final step in a process rather than a request a trespass notice pending if she does not comply. He does not shout it. He says it in the tone of someone who is doing her a courtesy by explaining rather than simply commanding. But the words are what they are, and they are delivered with his body positioned between her and the door she has had the right to walk through for 14 years. Hattie says, "I will not be leaving." He says, "Ma'am." She says nothing to this. He takes a step closer. She is sitting. He is standing. The physical geometry of it is not accidental, even if he does not consciously plan it. The weight of the badge and the belt and the car and the lot and the authority he has been given, all of it is arranged to make compliance feel like the only path that does not end in something worse. This is how it works. You are not supposed to feel that you can simply refuse. You are supposed to feel that the only dignified exit is the one being offered to you. Hattie Mae Jefferson has never once in 79 years accepted a false exit as dignified. She holds the bag. She looks at her hands. She waits. More seniors are arriving. It is 7:23, and people who attend Tuesday bingo at Crestwood know that if you want a good seat, you do not arrive at 7:31. They pull into the lot in ones and twos. They come on foot from the street. They arrive with their own bags and their own daubers and the settled expectation of a Tuesday that will go the way Tuesdays go. They see the bench. They see Bloom standing in front of the door. They see Hattie sitting with her bag and her spine very straight, and the officer positioned where no officer has ever been positioned before on a Tuesday morning. And they slow down. Some of them understand immediately. Some of them take a moment. But one by one they stop moving toward the entrance, and they begin to gather not loudly and not dramatically, but with the particular gravity of people who have arrived at something they did not expect and are deciding what to do about it. Bloom tells them there is a matter being handled and they should wait. They wait. But they do not leave. By 7:28, there are 31 people gathered in the area outside the door, and Bloom is starting to look like a man who understands that the geometry of the situation has changed in a way he did not plan for. He calls Novak back out. She comes through the door and looks at the assembled seniors with an expression that is meant to project administrative confidence but does not quite reach it. She says there is no need for anyone to linger, that this is a routine membership verification, that everything will be sorted shortly. Mrs. Ruth Hawkins, who is 83 and has attended this center for 9 years, and has never once in Hattie's memory raised her voice in a public space, says in a voice that is entirely level and entirely clear, "Hattie Mae has been calling bingo in that room since before you took this job." Novak looks at Mrs. Hawkins for a moment with the expression of someone who is deciding whether to acknowledge the statement or redirect past it. She decides to redirect. She says that may be, but current membership records need to be accurate. Mrs. Hawkins says that woman is the reason I get out of bed on Tuesdays. Novak does not have an answer for this, not a procedural one and not a human one. She looks at her clipboard. She says something about needing to get back inside. She does not look at Hattie when she goes. No one adds anything to what Mrs. Hawkins said. Nobody needs to. Bloom is standing in the middle of the growing crowd of seniors now, and the crowd is not hostile and not loud, but it has a weight to it, the specific weight of a community that has assembled around one of its own. He is used to managing situations. He is less used to managing situations where the entire context of his authority, the idea that he knows something the people around him do not, is being quietly and irrefutably contested by the plain fact of everyone knowing each other. He knows Novak. He does not know anyone else here. And everyone else here knows Hattie. The morning holds, the sparrows hold, the sun continues up. Bloom returns to Hattie and tells her again that she will need to leave. He says she is creating a disturbance, which is Novak's phrase from the original call, and which Hattie hears for what it is, the reframing of her stillness into something she is doing wrong. She is not creating a disturbance. She is sitting on a bench she has sat on for 14 years. The disturbance was created at 6:58 when a coordinator who had been in her position for 6 months made a phone call based on a filtered spreadsheet she did not know was filtered. Then Bloom makes his error. He reaches out and puts his hand on Hattie's arm. It is not a grab. It is not the kind of touch that leaves a mark. But it is a hand on her arm, without permission, intended to move her to direct her away from the door and toward the lot to make the compliance physical so that she cannot simply remain still. He says, "Ma'am, let me walk you to your car." She does not have a car. She has never had a car at this center. She takes the number 83 bus. He does not know this because he did not ask. She looks at his hand on her arm. She looks at it with the specific attention of a person examining something that should not be there. She says, "Please remove your hand." He does not remove it immediately. 31 people are watching this. Vera says something to Rosemary below the threshold of a whisper. Rosemary closes her eyes for a moment. Clarence puts both hands on his cane and leans forward. Aldridge has turned fully now, no longer looking at the lot, looking at Bloom with an expression that is very still and very clear. Bloom removes his hand. He straightens. He tells Hattie that if she does not comply, he will issue a formal trespass notice and she will be escorted from the property. Hattie says, "I have been a member of this center since 2010. I have called bingo in that room for 11 years. The bag beside me contains daubers and scorecards and a set of numbered balls I purchased with my own money 7 years ago because the center's set was worn out and nobody had ordered a replacement yet. I am not trespassing. I am waiting for a building I belong to open." Bloom looks at her. He is calculating. She can see him doing it behind his face, weighing the options, looking for the version of this that ends with compliance. He says, "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stop making this harder than it needs to be." She says nothing. She does not look away. She does not comply, and she does not react in the way that would give him a next step. She simply sits in the fullness of her own presence with the Lucky Hattie bag in her lap, and she lets him stand in his uncertainty, and that is all she does. He decides to move her anyway. Hattie sees him make this decision. She does not need to see his face to see it. She sees it in the shift of his posture, the way his shoulders settle into the next step before he takes it. She has been watching people make decisions all her life. She knows the body language of someone who has chosen to stop looking for a better option and has committed to the one they have. She thinks he is going to walk me out. He is going to do this in front of all these people. He is going to do this to a woman who has come to this building for 14 years and called these people's names every Tuesday for 11 of them, and who has done nothing wrong except exist on a bench at 6:47 in the morning because her bus schedule requires it. She thinks, let him. She thinks because when he does it, everyone in that bingo room is going to see it. He opens the side door and signals for her to come through. When she stands, he intends to walk her through the building to the main exit, which requires passing through the bingo room. He does not know what is in the bingo room. He has not thought about what is in the bingo room. He is thinking about procedure and compliance and getting this resolved before it becomes a larger problem which is already without his knowing it exactly what it has become. Hattie stands. She picks up her bag. She walks to the door because she is not going to be dragged, and she has been in the building before, and she knows this building, and she trusts, in the way that people trust things they have long reason to trust, that what is on the other side of the door will be on her side. They walk through the hall. The hall is 12 feet wide and lit by fluorescent panels that have a slight hum to them. The floors are a pale green linoleum scuffed at the edges near the walls where chairs and walkers have worn paths over the years. Hattie has walked this hall more times than she can count. She knows the way the light changes near the window at the far end in the afternoon, and the way the hallway smells different in winter than in spring, and the way sound carries in it. Footsteps echo faintly off the walls. Voices carry farther than you expect. She has walked this hall with her bag over her shoulder every Tuesday and Thursday for 14 years, and the building has always received her. She walks it now with an officer behind her, and she looks straight ahead, past the lounge with the window where Clarence used to sit and read the paper before Hattie brought him to bingo, past the bulletin board with the schedule of activities and the lost and found notice, and the photograph from last year's holiday party, where Hattie is in the front row on the left side with her arm around Dorothy Gaines. Through the hall that smells of the center's particular combination of floor polish and old books, and the faint trace of whatever was cooked in the kitchen the day before. Through the double doors at the back of the main room, into the bingo room. The bingo room on a Tuesday morning at 7:31 is not empty, it is set up. The tables are in their rows, the caller's station at the front, the microphone on its stand, the cage with the numbered balls ready on the table beside it. And in the chairs at every table in every row, 63 people who arrived early and are watching because they saw what happened outside through the windows, and through the open door when Bloom opened it, or because word had gotten to them through the building, or because they simply know that something is wrong from the way the room felt when they walked in. They see Hattie. They see the officer behind her. They see the bag. The room goes quiet, in the way a room goes quiet when 63 people make the same decision at the same instant. Not a sound of fear quiet, not a brace for impact quiet, a deciding quiet, the kind that is an action rather than an absence. Then, without a word, without a signal, without anyone looking at anyone else to check whether it was all right to do it, 63 people push back their chairs and stand up. All of them, some slowly, some with effort. 2 of them with the help of walkers. But all of them, every face turned toward Hattie standing as one. Bloom stops walking. Hattie stops. She looks at the room. At the faces, she knows the way she knows her own kitchen, not by effort, but by presence, by the accumulated weight of 11 years of Tuesdays. She sees Clarence's face, which she knew before she knew his first name. She sees Mrs. Hawkins, who has just come through the far door and taken in what she is seeing and gone still. She sees the face of a man named George, who has been coming since the year his wife stopped being able to come with him, and who still saves her a seat at the second table even now, 3 years after. She sees young people and old people and people in between all the ages of the center all standing. She does not cry. She is not a woman who cries in public. But something moves through her chest that is the specific warmth of a room that knows you standing for you, the warmth of belonging in its truest form. Bloom looks at 63 standing people and has no procedure for this. He says, "Everyone, please remain calm and be seated." Nobody moves, nobody looks away, nobody speaks. He says this is a matter being handled by the center administration. Nobody moves. He looks at the room. He has been a police officer for 9 years, and he has been in rooms full of people, and he has been in situations where he had to manage a crowd, and he has always had in those situations the sense that his authority was the largest thing in the room. He does not have that sense now. The largest thing in this room is 63 people who got to their feet without being asked, and who are not going to sit down until they are ready to. He cannot order them to sit and expect it to happen. He cannot make Hattie's case go away by repeating the same things at lower volume. He is running out of procedure. He says to Hattie in a voice pitched low as if the room cannot hear him, "Ma'am, I am going to need you to stop making this harder than it needs to be." She says nothing. She says nothing, and she does nothing, and she does not look away from the room. She does not perform her stillness for his benefit. She simply stands in the fact of herself, 79 years old, 32 years of service, 14 years of Tuesday mornings, 11 years of called numbers and known names, and she lets the room stand with her. And that is all she does, and it is enough. And it has always been enough. And it will continue to be enough for as long as she stands there. The double doors at the far end of the room open. The woman who walks through them is 81 years old. She has silver hair cut close to her head, and she walks with the economy of motion that belongs to people who have learned over 8 decades not to waste anything. She carries a bag over her left shoulder. Her name is Dorothy Gaines, and she has volunteered at this center for longer than anyone currently employed here has been in their job. She has organized the Thursday craft group for 12 years, and she has run Tuesday bingo alongside Hattie Mae Jefferson for 9 of those years. And she knows this building and everyone in it, the way you know something you have given yourself to entirely. She takes in the room. She takes in Bloom. She takes in Hattie standing in the middle of the floor. Her expression does not change in any dramatic way. She has lived 81 years and she has seen various versions of this before, and she knows what is needed. She opens her bag. She reaches inside with the precise certainty of someone who has always known where things are. She produces a laminated card. She walks directly to Bloom and holds it out to him. He takes it. He looks at it. It is a membership card from the Crestwood Senior Activity Center. It has a photograph Hattie at 65, hair shorter than it is now, the same expression she wears when she is being efficient about something. The name reads Hattie Mae Jefferson. The date in the upper right corner reads March 4, 2010. The category field reads Founding Member. The membership number is a 5-digit code preceded by the letters CW, which is the prefix the center used before it converted to the current digital system 9 years ago. Bloom looks at this card for a long time. He looks at it the way a person looks at something they were not expecting and are not sure what to do with. His certainty, which was never really his certainty, which he borrowed from Novak's voice on the phone at 6:58, begins to leave him in the visible way that borrowed certainty leaves a person when they meet something they cannot dismiss. Dorothy watches him look at the card. She does not speak. She does not add anything. She does not rush him. She simply waits in the way of a person who has all the time in the world because she knows she is right. Then she says 4 words. She called last week. She does not follow this with anything. She does not explain it or expand it or soften it. She states the fact the way you state a fact that does not require argument, because an argument would imply there is something to argue about and there is not. Bloom looks at the card again. He looks at Dorothy. He looks at Hattie. He steps back from the door. 1 step, sideways. Enough. Hattie picks up her bag. She adjusts the strap. She walks through the door and back to her place at the front table, the one closest to the caller's station. She sets the bag down. She opens the red zipper. She begins to take out the daubers, the scorecards, the numbered balls in their mesh bag, the things she brings every Tuesday, and has brought every Tuesday for 9 years. Angela Park comes through the side door 90 seconds later with her phone in her hand. She is the Tuesday recreation supervisor, and she has been in the building since 6:45 for the supply delivery. And she has been trying to get to this room since 7:26 when Keisha told her what was happening. She shows Bloom the phone screen without much preamble. The screen shows the digital membership record for Hattie Mae Jefferson. The membership number begins with CW, and it matches the number on Dorothy's card. The joined date reads March 4, 2010. The status field reads active. The last renewal reads current. She scrolls down. She shows him the filter indicator at the top of the roster view. She says the coordinator set up a view that only shows members active since 2020. It excluded everyone who joined before that year. Mrs. Jefferson's record has always been here. It has always been active. It was just outside the filter that was used to call you this morning. Bloom says nothing for a moment. Then he says, "Where is the coordinator?" Angela says she went back to her office. The double doors open again, and Calvin Marsh comes through. He is the executive director of the Crestwood Senior Activity Center, 56 years old, in a jacket over a collared shirt, because he came directly from his car the moment he got Angela's call at 7:26 and did not stop at his desk. He takes in the room in the quick, practiced way of someone who has learned to read a room before anyone has to explain it. He sees Bloom. He sees Dorothy still holding the card. He sees Hattie at the front table with the bag open. He sees 63 people who are still standing. He walks to Bloom first. He looks at him with the particular steadiness of a person who has managed institutions and the people in them for long enough to know exactly what he is looking at. He says his name and his title. He says this woman is a founding member of this center. She has held the Tuesday bingo caller role for 11 consecutive years. She is among the most known and most respected individuals in this building. Whatever information was used to make the call that brought you here was incorrect. Bloom's face does the thing that faces do when a person understands they have been used incorrectly. Not wrong in the sense that he intended to cause harm, but wrong in the sense that he was pointed at the wrong target by someone who did not have full possession of the facts and did not wait to get them before she picked up the phone. Bloom says the coordinator stated the membership record was deactivated. Marsh says the coordinator ran a filtered digital report that excluded 14 years of membership history and did not consult the paper files, did not consult any of the long-standing staff, and did not wait for anyone with actual institutional knowledge to arrive before calling the police. That error is documented. It is being reviewed this morning. Bloom says nothing. Marsh says the officer who responded to that call put his hand on a 79-year-old founding member's arm in front of her peers before a single fact was verified. I want you to understand that that is also part of what is being reviewed. He turns to the room. He looks at the 63 people still standing. He says, "Sit down, everyone. She is here. She is exactly where she belongs." They sit, slowly, carefully, with the dignity of people who stood up for a reason and are sitting down for a reason. Hattie sits. She puts both hands flat on the table. She closes her eyes for 1 second. She thinks about destiny. Not a long thought, just the specific weight of her in a hug. Both arms going all the way around, face pressed into the shoulder. The thing she used to say, "Good, then you cannot go anywhere." She thinks I did not go anywhere. I am still here. She opens her eyes. She picks up the first dauber. She looks out at the room. She says, "All right, let us get set up." And they do. The process that follows is formal and documented and uncomfortable for the people it is meant to be uncomfortable for. Marsh reviews the roster with the filter removed and confirms everything Angela showed Bloom on the phone screen. The record is there. It has always been there. The joined date is March 4, 2010. The category is founding member. 14 consecutive years of renewal uninterrupted. He confirms that Novak's filtered view was the only basis for the call. He confirms that no paper records were consulted. He puts this in writing before noon. Patricia Novak is formally counseled. The documentation is specific the inaccuracy of the information she provided to police the harm caused to a founding member, the failure to use available resources before escalating to law enforcement. The counseling is entered into her personnel file and it stays there. Bloom's report goes to his department. The incident, the hand on Hattie's arm, the trespass notice pending the escort through the bingo room is reviewed by his supervisor. The record sits where records sit. None of this is the most important thing that happens that week. The most important thing happens on Thursday, 2 days later, when Calvin Marsh calls a brief all-center meeting before the morning activities begin. He thanks Angela Park. He thanks Dorothy Gaines, which makes Dorothy look briefly and genuinely annoyed, because she does not like being singled out for doing what she considers obvious. He talks about what the center is for and why it matters, and he uses the word community without decoration the way people use it when they mean it. And then he says he has an announcement about the bingo room. He holds up a nameplate, the kind that mounts on a wall. He reads what it says. The room goes completely silent. Then someone begins to applaud. It does not start from the front or move in a wave. It starts in several places at once, the way real applause starts, the kind that comes from multiple people feeling the same thing at the same moment, and it fills the room without being asked to and without any direction, and it is the best kind of sound a room can make. The nameplate says, "The Hattie Mae Jefferson Bingo Room." Hattie sits at her usual table. She does not stand. She puts her hands flat on the table and looks at them. Her hands that sorted mail and drove routes and trained 17 people. Her hands that held destiny through nights in the hospital and that painted letters alongside her on a canvas bag in the kitchen on a Sunday afternoon and that have held a bingo ball aloft every Tuesday for 11 years. She looks at her hands and listens to the room. She thinks I have been here for 14 years. I was here before the computer system, and I was here before the coordinator who did not know the paper files existed, and I was here before the officer who did not ask whether she took the bus, and I will be here after all of them, and this room has known me all along. I have belonged here since the year the center opened its membership to founding members, and I walked in on a March morning and signed my name and paid my first fee, and looked around at the room and felt the particular feeling of a place that was going to matter. She felt that then. She feels it now under the applause, under the nameplate, under all of it. It is the same feeling it was in 2010. It does not change because a coordinator ran a filtered spreadsheet. It does not change because an officer stood in front of the door. It did not change while she sat on the bench, and it did not change when she walked through the bingo room, and it has not changed and will not change because it is not the kind of thing that depends on anyone's permission to remain true. She thinks about destiny. She thinks, "Girl, you would have liked this. You would have said I told you so about the queen color." She does not say it out loud. She does not need to. She reaches into the bag past the daubers and the scorecards and the numbered balls until her fingers find the inside of the canvas near the front panel where the fabric paint has worn smooth over. 9 years of handling the place where the purple letters are on the other side. And she keeps her hand there for a moment. The applause fills the room. She picks up the first dauber. She looks at the room, at Clarence, at Vera, and Rosemary, at Aldridge, at Dorothy, at Mrs. Hawkins, at George, who still saves a seat at the second table at 63, faces she knows the way she knows her own hands. She says in the voice that carries through the whole room without effort. The voice that means it is time and everything is in order and we are all here together. B12. And the room settles, and the numbers begin, and the morning continues, and Hattie Mae Jefferson is exactly where she is supposed to be in the room that has her name on it now, in the building where she has always belonged. There is something that needs to be said about what Tuesday mornings at Crestwood were before any of this happened, and what they nearly stopped being and what they remain. The center offers chair yoga and language groups and walking club, and a rotation of activities throughout the week. But Tuesday Bingo is not just an activity. It is the primary social event of the week for a meaningful number of the people who attend it, and the reason it is, that is not the game. The game is a vehicle. The reason it is the primary social event of the week for those people is Hattie. It is the voice that knows their names before they sit down. It is the woman who remembered that George needed a seat left open at the second table and did not make him explain it. It is the caller who once held up the entire game for 4 minutes while she helped Mrs. Hawkins find her glasses, not because the rules required her to, but because the rules of decency required her to. It is the person who has shown up without fail with the bag over her shoulder and the red zipper and the letters that say what they say every Tuesday for 11 years. When Dorothy Gaines decided 3 years ago to keep a copy of Hattie's membership card in her bag, she did it without announcement. She made a photocopy at the library and laminated it herself and put it in the small inside pocket of the bag she always carries, and she did not mention it to anyone. She was not building a case. She was not anticipating a situation. She was being the kind of person who carries what might be needed because she knows from 81 years of experience that what might be needed sometimes becomes what is needed, and when it does, you want to have it. On a Tuesday morning in March, Dorothy walked into the bingo room and understood within 4 seconds what was happening, and reached into the inside pocket of her bag and took out the card and walked directly to the officer and held it out. She did not look for permission. She did not glance around the room to see if anyone else was going to handle it first. She simply walked to the person who needed to see the card and gave it to him because that is what you do when you have what is needed, and the need is standing right in front of you. And then she said 4 words. She called last week. It is not a dramatic statement. It is a fact. It is the most verifiable kind of fact, the kind that cannot be countered because it is witnessed and recent and specific and stated by someone who was there. It means I was here. I was in this room. I can tell you not only that she is a member, but that she was performing the exact function you are now preventing her from performing 7 days ago in front of everyone in this room. You are preventing a bingo caller from reaching her bingo room. The bingo caller called last week. She will call next week. This is not a contested membership. This is a Tuesday. There is no answer for that. There is no procedure that addresses it. It simply requires acceptance or absurdity. And Bloom accepted it and stepped back and let Hattie walk through the door. The filtered roster error is in some ways the least surprising part of the story. It is mundane. Filters are set up. Their scope is misunderstood. Incorrect conclusions are drawn from incomplete data. This happens. What is not mundane is what Novak did with the incorrect conclusion. She did not stop and think this seems incomplete. She did not open the filing cabinet that holds the paper records going back to the center's founding. She did not ask the woman who has worked the front desk for 2 years and knows every regular face. She did not wait 20 minutes for the director to arrive. She called the police on a 79-year-old woman who was sitting on a bench she had been sitting on for 14 years. That decision, made in the confidence of a false certainty, is what sent a patrol car into the parking lot at 7:03 on a Tuesday morning. That decision is what put a hand on Hattie's arm. That decision is what made 63 people stand up in a bingo room without being asked. These are the things that do not go into the personnel file. These are the things that belong to the people who were there. The nameplate belongs to all of them. The silence that fell when Marsh read what it said belongs to all of them. The applause that followed belongs to all of them. And the Tuesday mornings that continue in the room with the new name on the wall, with the caller's voice carrying through the space without effort, with the bag at the front table and the red zipper and the letters Destiny painted with her tongue between her teeth in great seriousness on a Sunday afternoon, those belong to all of them too. And there is something that belongs only to Hattie. It belongs to no one else, and does not need to be witnessed or recorded or mounted on a wall. It is the knowledge quiet and complete that she did not move. When Bloom stood in front of the door and said trespassing and said deactivated and said make this easier, she did not move. Not because she was performing stubbornness and not because she was making a point, but because she knew with the calm certainty of someone who knows what they know that she was right, and that right does not require moving. She has carried Destiny's bag for 9 years. She has carried Destiny in every Tuesday since the funeral when she did not know what to do with herself and got on the number 83 bus and came here because Destiny would have told her to. She has called numbers in a room full of people who have become over 11 years a second community, a second home, a room where she is known. She carried all of that on the bench. She carried it when the hand landed on her arm. She carried it through the hallway and into the bingo room. And when 63 people stood up, they were not standing for a membership card or a founding date or a digital roster or a personnel file. They were standing for 11 years of Tuesday mornings. They were standing for the voice that carried without a microphone. They were standing for the woman who remembered every name and every birthday and who bought her own set of numbered balls with her own money because she wanted the game to be right. They were standing for Hattie. And she received that with the same straightness she had held on the bench, not performing gratitude and not collapsing into it, but accepting it with the quiet fullness of someone who has earned it and knows it and does not need to make a production of knowing it. That is the thing that does not go in any file. That is the part of Tuesday morning in March that belongs to the people in that room and will belong to them as long as any of them is living. Stories like this one do not stay in the rooms where they happen. They are too large for the rooms. They belong to the larger conversation about who gets to walk through a door they have walked through for 14 years, and who gets stopped and by whom and on what basis. They belong to anyone who has ever been asked to prove the obvious. They need to travel. If this one stayed with you, if it made you feel the thing that stories like this are meant to make you feel, please like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment and tell us which moment hit you hardest. And please subscribe our channel so you are here for every story we tell, because there are more of them and they deserve to be heard, and so do you. Hattie Mae Jefferson sits at the front table of the room that has her name on it. She picks up the first ball. She holds it up so the room can see. B12. And the morning begins.